Jon Snow is a fantasy hero. He goes on adventures, falls in love, and fights to save the realm. As a bastard, Jon feels rejected, so he searches for family and identity, and he struggles to do the right thing in a morally complicated world. The first 3 seasons of the Game of Thrones TV show are a pretty close adaptation of the books. But in the later seasons, TV Jon is a very different character to Book Jon. TV Jon is a badass warrior who fights lots of bad guys. He's described as brave but stupid because he takes dumb risks. He's not good at politics because he's so stubbornly honest. Actor Kit Harington says that Jon is not able to lie. TV Jon only wants to do the right thing. He doesn't want power or to be a king. He says, "I never wanted it."
I never wanted a crown.
I told you I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it.
But in the books, Jon is different. Book Jon is not a great warrior. He's more of a smart politician. Book Jon is not always honest. He lies and has secret plans. And he doesn't just want to do the right thing, he's also tempted by his desires for honor, revenge, love, and home. When he gets the chance to rule Winterfell, he wants it. He thinks, "I have always wanted it."
I don't want it.
Author George Martin writes about the human heart in conflict with itself. Book Jon is defined by internal conflict between his desires and his duty, forcing him to make tough choices. He constantly faces moral dilemmas that question what it means to be a hero. But in the later seasons of the TV show, Jon often has no internal conflict. When he only wants to do the right thing, his choices have no moral or emotional cost. And in the TV show, Jon's big plot twists go nowhere. Like, Jon dies, then comes back to life, but death doesn't much change him, and his resurrection is barely mentioned again. Jon finds out he's a Targaryen, heir to the throne, but Jon doesn't want the throne or to be a Targaryen, so this also doesn't change him. Jon is set up as the prophesied hero who'll defeat the White Walkers, but in the end, Jon just shouts at a dragon while his sister saves the world. After seasons of build-up, these twists and reveals feel pointless. In the books, Jon's resurrection will transform him. His Targaryen blood has power. Jon is deeply connected with prophecy and magic that will change the world of Ice and Fire. Jon's moral and emotional struggles explore the series' central themes of power, family, and heroism. And when Jon collides with Daenerys and Tyrion in the final books, George Martin says it'll be a very different ending to the TV show. So who is the real Jon Snow in the books, and how will his story end? Jon Snow grew up at Winterfell with Lord Eddard Stark, Lady Catelyn, and their children Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and Rickon. But Jon is different to the other kids because he's a bastard. Jon is not Catelyn's son, he's the son of some other woman, and Ned won't tell anyone who Jon's mother is. Some say she was Lady Ashara Dayne, others say she was a commoner. The truth is probably that Jon is really the son of Ned's sister, Lyanna Stark, with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Ned promised to protect Jon, so that's why he pretends to be Jon's father. That's what was revealed in the TV show, anyway, and there are lots of hints that this is true in the books as well. If Jon is Prince Rhaegar's son, then Jon is arguably the rightful king of Westeros, but everyone thinks he's just Ned's bastard, born outside marriage, so Jon has the bastard name Snow, not the true-born family name Stark. Bastards have lower social status in Westeros and are widely distrusted, so Jon faces prejudice and exclusion. Catelyn feels hurt that Ned cheated on her and raised his bastard in their home. So Cat never accepts Jon. She's cold to him, sometimes cruel, making Jon feel that he's not part of the family. And this is partly for political reasons. Catelyn wants to make sure that her son Robb inherits Winterfell, and she worries that Jon could be a political rival to Robb, so Catelyn always makes it clear that Jon is not a true Stark. Jon even looks different to the Starks. In the books, Robb, Sansa, Bran, and Rickon have auburn hair and blue eyes, like their mother Catelyn. But Jon has dark brown hair and dark grey eyes, like Ned. So Jon is the black sheep, who doesn't fit in. The only kid who looks like Jon is Arya, and she's also a misfit because she's a rebellious tomboy. So Jon and Arya are close. Jon musses her hair and calls her little sister. Robb is Jon's best friend and rival. Jon is kind to Bran and to young Rickon, though Sansa is distant with Jon. She calls him half-brother, not brother. So Jon loves the Starks, but because he's a bastard, he feels he's not part of the family. In Book 1, Jon is a 14-year-old boy. He's quiet, brooding, sometimes sullen and hot-headed, but he's empathetic and open-minded, willing to listen, learn, and grow. In Chapter 1, the Starks find 5 direwolf pups. Direwolves are mystical creatures, and the symbol of House Stark. Bran wants to keep the pups, so Jon convinces Ned that the 5 pups should belong to the 5 Stark kids. Jon excludes himself, says he doesn't get a wolf because he's a bastard. Jon sacrifices his own happiness out of kindness for Bran. But then Jon hears a noise that no one else can hear, so he finds one more direwolf pup, apart from the others. It's an albino with white fur and red eyes, who he names Ghost. So Ghost and Jon are both different and apart from their families. Ghost's white fur and red eyes could be a hint of Jon's real father Rhaegar, because Rhaegar also had pale hair and wore Targaryen red. But it's strange how Jon finds Ghost, because Jon hears a noise, but we learn later that Ghost is always silent. Ghost never makes a sound. So what noise did Jon hear? Maybe Jon was influenced by Bloodraven. Bloodraven, or the Three-Eyed Crow, was once a Targaryen bastard politician. Now he's a Greenseer, a sorcerer with the magic of the old gods. Bloodraven teaches Bran magic later on. And throughout the books, Bloodraven manipulates events from afar by giving people dreams and by controlling animals with skin changer or warg magic. Ghost is connected to this magic. Ghost's white fur and red eyes look like the white and red weirwood trees. Jon thinks that Ghost belongs to the old gods. Bloodraven also has white hair and a red eye. So maybe Bloodraven used the magic of the old gods to make Jon hear a noise, to make him find Ghost. Bloodraven might even have sent the direwolf's mother south in the first place, because there are hints that Bloodraven has plans for Jon, wants to use him to fulfill prophecies to defeat the White Walkers. So Ghost not only symbolizes how Jon is different to his siblings, but also connects Jon to mysterious magic. King Robert comes to Winterfell, but at the feast, Catelyn seats Jon at the back of the hall, separate from his family. Jon feels he has no future at Winterfell. Robb will be the next Stark Lord, his siblings will marry great houses and rule holdfasts, but as a bastard, Jon has no inheritance, no home here. So he tells his uncle Benjen that he wants to join the Night's Watch. The Watch is an ancient brotherhood who guard the wall in the north. Jon sees the Watch as his path to honor and adventure, a chance to prove his worth. Benjen warns Jon that Watchmen serve for life. They swear to never marry or have kids, and to hold no lands and wear no crowns. Benjen says that Jon doesn't understand the cost of that oath. Some fans think that Benjen knows that Jon is the son of Prince Rhaegar, and that if Jon swears the Watch oath, he'd be giving up his claim to the Iron Throne. Because Benjen was at Harrenhal when Rhaegar and Lyanna's relationship likely began. Benjen's grief and guilt over Lyanna's death might be why Benjen joined the Night's Watch, but that's just a theory. Jon feels rejected. He can't join the Night's Watch, he can't be a Stark, so who is he? Jon and Arya watch Prince Joffrey and Robb training at swords. Jon and Arya both want to join the training, but Jon's not allowed because he's a bastard, and Arya's not allowed because she's a girl. Jon says nothing is fair. This world discriminates by social class and gender. It's unfair that Joffrey gets more power and privilege just because he's a prince and Jon's a bastard, which is ironic because Joffrey is actually a bastard while Jon is secretly a prince. But the point is that Jon experiences injustice and prejudice, and that drives him to make justice later on. Ned is going south, and Catelyn wants Jon gone. So Ned agrees to send Jon to the Night's Watch, though Ned's voice is troubled. This chapter is from Catelyn's point of view, so we don't get to see Ned's thoughts here. If Ned promised to protect Jon, why send Jon to the Wall? Maybe Ned thinks that Jon will be safer if he swears the Watch oath to wear no crowns, because then Jon can't be used in any dangerous political plots. Aemon Targaryen joined the Watch for similar reasons. So Jon is leaving Winterfell. He says goodbye to Bran, but Catelyn is cruel to Jon. She says she wishes Jon was in a coma instead of Bran. But Jon tells Robb that Cat was kind to him, so that Robb doesn't feel bad. Again, Jon sacrifices his own feelings for the happiness of others. Jon says goodbye to Arya, and he gives her a sword called Needle. He tells Arya to learn to fight, in defiance of society's sexist rules. And for the rest of the books, Jon and Arya think about each other often, hoping to reunite. The TV show adds a scene where Ned says goodbye. Jon asks about his mother, and Ned promises that he'll tell Jon the next time they meet, which evokes Ned's promise to Lyanna. But tragically, Jon and Ned never see each other again. In the books, Jon dreams that his mother was beautiful and kind. He also knows she may have been a whore. He worries that Ned did something shameful with his mother. Why else would Ned be so secretive? Jon is haunted by this painful mystery. Jon rides north with Benjen and Tyrion Lannister, and they're joined by more recruits for the Watch. Jon is upset to learn that the recruits are criminals, forced to join the Watch as a punishment. Jon had thought that the Watch was a noble brotherhood of heroes, but Tyrion says it's a dumping ground for outcasts. Robb will inherit Winterfell, while Jon is abandoned with the rejects. At first, Jon gets angry. Ghost attacks Tyrion. Jon has several emotional tantrums in the books. Like other Targaryens, Jon has a temper. But then, Jon cools down and he accepts that Tyrion is right. His life will be hard. It's not what he hoped for. But growing up, becoming an adult, means making the best of an imperfect world. Tyrion gives Jon advice, tells him to be proud of his bastard identity and to use it as a strength. The bastard and the dwarf form an unlikely friendship, which could be important in later books. Jon starts his new life at Castle Black, and it sucks. Jon wants adventure beyond the Wall, but he's put into training under the cruel Alliser Thorne. Alliser calls Jon Lord Snow as a mocking nickname. Jon easily beats the other recruits at sword practice because Jon's had proper training, so the other boys hate Jon. Jon is cold and alone on the Wall, feeling sorry for himself, until the smith, Donal Noye, gives Jon advice. He says Jon is not the victim here. Jon may think that his life sucks, but Jon grew up in a castle, the son of a great lord. Most Watch recruits are peasants who've suffered way more than Jon has. When Jon beats the other boys, he's being a privileged, arrogant bully. Jon listens to Donal and starts to show empathy. He makes friends with Grenn and Pyp, and he teaches the recruits to fight better. Though Alliser gets angry at Jon for undermining his authority, and when Jon stands up to Alliser, he makes a bitter, lasting enemy. It's kind of ironic that Alliser hates Jon, because in Robert's Rebellion, Alliser fought for the Targaryens, and Jon is secretly a Targaryen. Samwell Tarly arrives. Sam is fat and scared and useless at fighting, so Alliser has Sam beaten. Jon has sympathy for misfits like Tyrion and Arya and himself, so Jon protects Sam. Using persuasion and threats, Jon convinces all the recruits to not hurt Sam. So Jon becomes a leader, someone who brings people together to protect the vulnerable. Jon is frustrated by Sam's weakness, but he listens and tries to understand Sam. Jon looks past Sam's flaws and sees his strengths, that Sam is smart and good with books. So Jon asks for Sam to become Maester Aemon's steward, arguing that the world needs the unique talents of all different people. Jon makes change to empower the vulnerable. But the TV show doesn't include this bit. TV Jon is not as interested in change and justice, which makes him a more passive character. Book Jon has political values and a vision for change, which gives him a reason to want power. Jon graduates to become a full brother of the Watch. Jon wants to become a ranger to patrol beyond the wall, but he's made a steward, a servant for Commander Jeor Mormont. At first, Jon is angry, says he's too good to be a mere steward, but Sam says that Jeor will teach Jon to lead, will groom him for command. So again, Jon listens, puts aside his childish arrogance, and accepts his new responsibilities. Jon swears his Night's Watch oath at a weirwood tree, sacred to the old gods, because he feels connected to the gods of the Starks and the North. He swears to take no wife, no lands, no children, and no crowns, to be the sword in the dark, the fire against the cold, the light of the dawn, to guard the realms of men, until his death. The Watch is a motley brotherhood of outcasts and underdogs, but it becomes Jon's family. He still loves the Starks, but he was never one of them. The Night's Watch become his brothers. The boys celebrate their graduation with snowball fights and childish horseplay. They're so innocent, unprepared for the dangers to come. Alyssa says that in winter these boys will die like flies, and he's not wrong. Childhood will end, many will die, because the cold winds are rising, and winter is coming. Uncle Benjen is missing. He went beyond the wall with 6 men and hasn't come back. Then Ghost finds 2 of Benjen's men dead. Their bodies are pale with blue eyes. So Jon fears that they were killed by the Others, or White Walkers, the legendary ice demons from beyond the wall. Thousands of years ago, in the Long Night, the Walkers attacked with an army of the dead, and now they are returning. In the night, Ghost leads Jon to find that one of the corpses has risen from the dead. It's now a wight, a zombie controlled by the White Walkers. So Jon bravely fights the wight and kills it with fire. Jon's hand gets burned in the fire, because in the books Targaryens can be burned, they're not all fireproof. So for the rest of the story, Jon flexes his scarred, burned hand, a constant reminder of the White Walker threat. It seems that this wight was trying to kill Commander Jeor. Meanwhile, the other corpse rises and kills the acting First Ranger. So the White Walkers are targeting high-ranking officers to weaken the Night's Watch. It's interesting that Ghost leads Jon to the Whites. Maybe Bloodraven is influencing Ghost, leading Jon to face the White Walkers. Jon saved Jeor's life. He proved himself. So Jeor gives Jon a sword called Longclaw. Longclaw is a bastard sword, which means it's bigger than a normal one-handed sword. And Longclaw is Valyrian steel, a super sharp blade from Valyria, the ancient Dragonlord Empire, which subtly connects Jon to his Targaryen Valyrian ancestors. For centuries, Longclaw was held by Jeor's family, House Mormont, passed down from father to son. But Jeor's son Jorah fled the country, so when Jeor gives the sword to Jon, he symbolically chooses Jon as his new son. And Jon has mixed feelings about this. Jon had once dreamed that his father Ned would give him the Stark family sword. Jon is loyal to Jeor, and Jon is desperate for a father figure, but he doesn't want to replace Ned. So he feels torn between the Night's Watch and the Starks, but he accepts the sword. And Longclaw gets a new pommel shaped like Ghost. In the south, Ned is imprisoned by King Joffrey, and Robb marches south to save him. So Jon desperately wants to help the Starks, but he's sworn to stay on the wall, so what should he do? Maester Aemon says the reason why Watchmen swear to have no family is so they will not love. Watchmen should be focused on defending the realm, and if they have families, that could divide their loyalties and weaken the Watch. Aemon says love is the death of duty. So to do his duty, Jon must let go of his love for the Starks. Aemon has felt this pain himself, because Aemon's a Targaryen. He's the great-granduncle of Daenerys and Rhaegar, and the great-great-granduncle of Jon Snow. When the Targaryens were overthrown in Robert's Rebellion, when his family was slaughtered, Aemon kept his oath on the wall. So will Jon stay for his duty, or help the Starks out of love? Jon wants to do the right thing, but either choice feels like a betrayal. This is Jon's first moral dilemma, a choice where there is no totally right answer. Both options have a cost. So Jon has to compromise, make sacrifices, think hard about his values and morality. And this is what Jon's story is all about, exploring how to be a hero in a morally complex world. Later, the Lannisters execute Ned. They kill Jon's only parent. So then, Jon chooses love. He rides south to help Robb. Jon knows that the punishment for leaving the Watch is death, so Jon decides that he'll become a fugitive, friendless and damned. He only hopes to live long enough to avenge his father in battle, so then Jon can die like a true Stark. Jon is as dramatic and naive as Sansa in Book 1, fantasizing of a glorious self-sacrifice. But Jon rides south, and his friends go after him. They remind him of his duty to his Watch brothers, and bring him back to the wall. Jeor tells Jon to grow up. There's no point in Jon getting himself killed by deserting. Jon can't bring Ned back to life, and Jon won't make a difference in Robb's army. The war in the south is not as important as the war in the north, because beyond the wall, wildlings are gathering. The Walking Dead are attacking the Watch. They are the enemies that matter. Jeor says Jon belongs on the wall, because he has the blood of the Starks with the magic of the old gods and his direwolf. The Watch is his destiny. Jon reflects that he has no rights, no name, and now no parents. All he has is his Watch duty. Jon is troubled by his loves and his loyalties, but decides that he'll keep his vows. So at the start of Book 1, Jon is an immature boy, angry at the world for rejecting him. But Jon listens to Tyrion, Donal, Aemon, Sam, and Jeor. He extends his empathy to the outcasts of the Watch, and becomes a leader who defends the weak, a warrior who fights the dead. But being a hero is complicated. Jon is torn between his duty to the Watch and his love for the Starks. Can he fight for the greater good and protect the people he loves? In Book 2, the Night's Watch rides north. Jeor leads 300 men beyond the wall to find Benjen, to face the White Walkers and find the wildlings. Many wildling villages have recently been abandoned, so Jeor wants to find out where the wildlings went. They stop at a village called White Tree, which has an enormous, monstrous weirwood tree. The tree has a jagged mouth full of human bones, like a sacrifice to the old gods. The wildlings burn their dead, so they don't rise again as wights. Above, the mystical red comet burns, evoking ancient prophecy, foretelling change and doom. Book 2 has a growing sense of mystery and dark magic. Jon once dreamed of adventure beyond the wall, but this adventure sucks. They ride through rain, Jon's back hurts, the food is bad, it's no fun. He learns that real life is not like a fantasy story. Life is harder and more complicated. Sometimes good and evil are not as they seem. The Rangers stop at Craster's Keep. Craster is a wildling and the son of a Night's Watch man. And Craster marries his own daughters, has children of incest, and rules his daughter wives with violence and fear. Craster even sacrifices his baby sons to the White Walkers. So Craster is an evil man, but the Night's Watch treat him as an ally. Craster gives them shelter and intel, so the Watch gives Craster trade and weapons. This monster is a friend to the Watch. One of Craster's daughter wives, Gilly, begs Jon for help. She's pregnant, and she wants Jon to take her and her baby to safety. Jon wants to help her, but the Watch won't protect a wildling girl, and won't defy their friend Craster. So Jon feels ashamed. He had thought that the Night's Watch were the good guys, but they won't help this innocent girl, and they befriend the evil Craster. Ned taught Jon that it's wrong to make alliances with evil men, so Jon questions if the Night's Watch is doing the right thing. Gior says the Watch's only purpose is to guard the realm, not do justice. That sometimes you have to tolerate evil for the greater good. So Jon wonders if it's right to compromise your morals. If you protect the realm but tolerate evil, what are you saving? At Craster's Keep, there's a bear skull on display, and Jeor Mormont's nickname is the Old Bear, so the bear skull foreshadows Jeor's death at Craster's Keep later on. Jeor learns that the Wildling King, Mance Rayder, has gathered the wildlings in the Frostfang Mountains. That's why those villages were abandoned. So the Rangers continue north to the Fist of the First Men. The Fist is a hill defended by walls built by the ancient First Men. It's a mysterious, powerful, prehistoric place, like a fantasy Stonehenge. Ghost acts weird at the Fist, and he leads Jon to a hidden package. It's a bunch of dragonglass blades and an old horn in a Night's Watch cloak. Weapons made of dragonglass can kill White Walkers, and this horn might be the Horn of Winter, a legendary artifact with the power to destroy the Wall. Someone must have put this here to help Jon and the Watch fight the White Walkers, and to keep the horn safe. Maybe it was put here by Uncle Benjen, or by Cold Hands, the mysterious undead servant of Bloodraven. In the TV show, Benjen is Cold Hands, but in the books, Benjen and Cold Hands might be separate characters. It's confusing. But either way, Bloodraven is probably behind this. Bloodraven might have influenced Ghost to lead Jon here. That would explain Ghost's weird behavior. In the TV show, Sam randomly finds this package, but in the books it's Jon, guided by mysterious forces. Qhorin Halfhand arrives. Qhorin is a legendary ranger, the wildlings' deadliest enemy. He's called the Halfhand because he lost some fingers in battle with wildlings. Qhorin says that Mance plans to attack the realm and to break the wall with magic, using the Horn of Winter. So Qhorin leads a mission to investigate, and he chooses Jon to come with him, because Qhorin notices that Jon has Ghost, and has the blood of the Starks connected to the Old Gods. So Jon, Qhorin, and his men journey into the mountains. It's a harsh land, but Jon sees beautiful waterfalls, wildflowers, and ravines. Turns out there is beauty in adventure sometimes. They see wildlings ahead, so Jon climbs a dangerous mountain trail and kills a wildling called Arel. Arel is the first person Jon has ever killed, not including that zombie. And Arel is a skin changer who's magically connected to his eagle, so when Arel dies, Arel's spirit lives on inside his animal. For the rest of the book, Arel's eagle follows Jon, spying on him, wanting revenge. Jon also faces a wildling named Ygritte. Jon had been told that wildlings are all nasty, evil murderers, but Ygritte is a girl with red hair. She reminds him of Arya. Jon doesn't want to kill this girl, so Jon captures her, and they talk, and she shows him a different perspective on the world. Like, the Watch says wildlings are invaders and thieves, but from Ygritte's perspective, the Southerners stole the wildlings' land. Jon thinks that he's from the north, but from Ygritte's point of view, Jon is from the south, and she's from the north. Everything's relative. Good and evil can depend on your perspective. Ygritte tells Jon a story about a wildling called Bale. Bale had a baby with a Stark girl, and that baby became a Stark king. So the Starks and the Wildlings are related. They're family. So why are they enemies? The story of Bael and the Stark girl also mirrors the story of Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark. Bael took a blue winter rose from Winterfell, and blue winter roses were Lyanna Stark's favourite flower. Bael and the Stark hid in the Winterfell crypts, which is a hint that Jon will find out about his real parents in the crypts. Jon has recurring dreams of the crypts, where he's searching for his father, and he knows he's not a Stark, and he has to go down there. Ygritte is a wildling warrior, an enemy of the Watch, so Jon prepares to kill her. But then he thinks of Ned. Ned said that when you execute someone, you should look in their eyes and hear their words to see if they really deserve to die. And when Jon looks in Ygritte's eyes, he sees no evil. So Jon follows Ned's example of mercy, and he decides to let Ygritte go free. In the TV show, it's different. Ygritte escapes from Jon, and he chases her, running and jumping through the mountains.
Parkour! Michael, parkour! Parkour! Get off!
But in the book, Jon chooses to spare Ygritte. He makes a moral decision. He's learning that the world is more complex than Night's Watch good and Wildlings bad. People are not just black and white. That night, Jon has a crazy dream. He magically connects with Ghost, and he sees a weirwood tree with Bran's face. Bran connects with Jon and Ghost from afar through the magic of the Old Gods, and he shows Jon a huge wildling army nearby. Then Ghost is attacked by Orell's eagle, so when Ghost returns injured, it proves that Jon's dream was real. Qhorin says that Jon is a warg, connected to his wolf. He says magic is returning to the world, old powers are waking, and the trees have eyes again. In the TV show, Qhorin is not interested in magic or in Ghost. The show removes most of the magic from Jon's story. But in the books, Jon is influenced by dreams, magic, and prophecies, leading him towards a mysterious destiny. The Watchmen retreat, but wildlings chase them through the mountains. The men split up until it's just Jon and Qhorin left. Since Qhorin is a famous ranger, he knows that the wildlings will kill him. But the wildlings might spare Jon. Qhorin tells Jon to join the wildlings, to infiltrate the enemy and find out their plans. Jon doesn't want to be a spy. He wanted to be an honourable hero, not a sneaky traitor. But sometimes a hero has to sacrifice their honour for the greater good. So when Jon and Qhorin are caught by the wildlings, Qhorin pretends to be angry at Jon and attacks him, and lets Jon kill him. With the half-hand dead, the wildlings let Jon live, for now. So, in Book 2, Jon finally gets an adventure beyond the Wall, but it's not like he expected. Turns out the Night's Watch aren't all good, because they work with Craster and don't help Gilly. And the wildlings aren't all evil. Some of them are cute redheads. Jon has to kill one of his own sworn brothers and join the enemy, making him question his loyalties, his morality, and his identity. He feels he's lost his Stark family, and now he's lost his Watch brothers too. So, who is he now? He also discovers he's a warg, magically connected to his wolf and the Old Gods, so what is he now? In Book 3, Jon is a captive crow, surrounded by thousands of wildlings. He meets the wildling king, Mance Rayder, and asks to join their side. In the TV show, this scene is tense. The wildlings are cold and threatening. In the books, it is tense, but it's also warm and colourful. Mance plays music and sings. Tormund tells jokes. We meet Mance's pregnant wife, Dalla, and Dalla's sister Val and her lover, all cooking and drinking together. The wildlings aren't just threatening, they're a family, and family is what Jon has always wanted. The wildlings aren't all nice. Rattleshirt threatens to sow a weasel inside Jon's belly. The wildling chief Harmer Dogshead kills a dog each fortnight. And there's Steer, the leader of a wildling group called the Thens. In the TV show, Steer is a scary cannibal who threatens to eat Ollie's mum. But in the books, Steer is a more reasonable political leader. The Thens are the most technologically advanced and socially organized wildling culture. They forge bronze weapons and have lords and laws, which is important later when Jon tries to integrate the Thens into the realm. So wildlings aren't all the same. Their cultures are unique and colourful. In the TV show, Mance is a tough, proud wildling leader, but in the books, Mance has more layers. He's smart, charismatic, and passionate, with a real philosophy to his motivations. 'Cause Mance was raised by the Night's Watch, but he left to join the wildlings, because Mance wants freedom, individuality, and pleasure. He joined the wildlings for a place where a kiss was not a crime, where a man could wear any cloak he chose. The wildlings call themselves the Free Folk, because they don't kneel to lords or kings. They do sometimes follow kings like Mance, but only by choice. They're always free to do what they want. Free folk are not divided into highborn and lowborn, or trueborn and bastards, and women have more equality, with spearwives like Ygritte fighting alongside men. The wildling life is dangerous, but Ygritte says freedom and pleasure are worth the risk. So, compared to the Night's Watch, those cold, lonely men with no freedom and no families, the wildling life is way more fun. Free folk society is more fair than the exploitative class system of the South. Jon tells Mance that he wants to join the wildlings because they treat bastards equally, unlike the South who discriminate against bastards. So Mance lets him join the wildlings. Secretly, Jon stays loyal to the Watch, but he is tempted by the wildlings' freedom, equality, and warmth. Suddenly, Jon is attacked by Arel's eagle. Arel's spirit wants revenge for Jon killing him, so the eagle tears up Jon's face. Jon is left scarred and haunted by the ghost of the first man he killed. His violence has lasting consequences. The wildlings go to the Fist, and they learn that the Night's Watch were attacked here by White Walkers. In this battle, hundreds of watchmen were killed, and later Commander Dior is killed in a mutiny. So, with the Night's Watch scattered, now's a good time for the wildlings to attack. Mance sends Steer and Ygritte and Jon and 100 wildlings to climb the wall and attack Castle Black. Mance says if Jon is disloyal, cut out his heart. Ygritte helps Jon be accepted by the wildlings. She's grateful that Jon spared her life, but she also has a big crush on Jon and wants to have sex with him. Jon is reluctant, because watchmen aren't meant to have sex, and Jon has always been determined to never father a bastard, because as a bastard, Jon suffered prejudice all his life. He doesn't want to get Ygritte pregnant and bring another bastard into the world. But Tormund reminds Jon that wildlings don't discriminate. They're free to have sex and have kids with whoever they want without shame. And Ygritte explains more of the wildling philosophy. She says that the gods made the earth for all men to share, and that it's wrong for southern kings to rule over land and people. She shows Jon that the giants aren't monsters. They're a unique culture, and it's tragic that they're going extinct, just as it's tragic that the wildlings are under threat and they might go extinct. Ygritte says, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," teaching him whole new political and moral perspectives on the world. So Jon feels conflicted and confused and horny. Jon is a 16-year-old boy, and this redhead is throwing herself at him. So Jon does have sex with Ygritte. He loses his virginity and breaks his oath. Breaks his oath in spirit, if not technically. They have a particularly memorable tryst in a cave, and Ygritte says she never wants to leave. With Ygritte, Jon experiences love and sex and freedom, and he wants to be with her. But deep down, Jon knows he's not a wildling. He's of the Starks and the North, and he will have to leave Ygritte to protect his home from her people. Like Romeo and Juliet, Jon and Ygritte are star-crossed lovers, on opposing sides, both doomed to die. Jon and the wildlings climb the wall. In the TV show, this is dramatic. They all climb up by hand, and Jon falls, and Ygritte falls, and Jon saves her. But in the book, it's only a small team of climbing experts who climb by hand. From the top of the wall, they drop down a rope ladder so the others can climb up more easily. And they start the climb from the top of a hill where the wall is not as tall. George Martin really thought about the most logical and realistic way to climb a 700-foot magic ice wall. South of the wall, they find an old man, and Styr tells Jon to kill him, to test Jon's loyalty. Jon looks into the man's eyes, and he thinks of Ned Stark, so Jon refuses to kill this innocent man. With Ygritte, Jon refused to kill a wildling. Now he refuses to kill a southerner. He's rejecting the black and white morality of Watch versus wildlings, and chooses to protect people on both sides of the wall. Before Styr can cut out Jon's heart, Jon is saved by Bran, because Bran and his mates are hiding nearby, and Bran wargs his direwolf to attack the wildlings. So, once again, the magic of the old gods guides Jon. Jon escapes the wildlings, though Ygritte shoots him with an arrow. The TV show adds more scenes that deepen the drama between Jon and Ygritte. The actors Kit Harington and Rose Leslie have a great natural chemistry, so good that they are now married with kids. Jon returns to Castle Black, and in the TV show, this is where Season 3 ends. The first 3 seasons are pretty close to the books, but from Season 4 onwards, the show gets increasingly different to the books. Season 4 adds a plotline where Jon goes back to Craster's Keep to kill the mutineers who killed Commander Gior. In the books, it's Cold Hands who kills these mutineers, then he feeds their bodies to Bran. But in the show, Jon fights the mutineers, who are led by Carl fucking Tanner, a cartoonishly evil villain. The books are about Jon learning a more complex moral perspective, fighting emotional battles in his heart. But this TV show plotline, it's about good guys killing bad guys. Carl does teach Jon a lesson about fighting dirty and the cost of honor, but most of this plotline is filler. The show starts to make changes that miss the meaning of the books. In the book, Jon gets back to Castle Black and he's a mess. His leg is wounded, his heart is broken from leaving Ygritte. He finds out that Winterfell was burned and Bran and Rickon are believed dead. But Jon puts aside his pain and focuses on protecting others. The wildlings are coming, and Castle Black is not ready. Officer Bowen Marsh took most of their men off chasing wildling feint attacks, so now there's only 40 men left to defend Castle Black. Styr has 100 wildlings south of the wall, so it looks like they're doomed. But Jon and Donal make a plan. In the night, Styr's wildlings attack, and Jon shoots at them with arrows. Jon knows these wildlings. He travelled with them, climbed the wall with them, and now he has to kill them. But when Jon sees Ygritte, he can't bring himself to kill his lover. The Watchmen retreat up the wall, and the wildlings chase them up the stairs. So then Jon and Donal spring their trap. They burn and collapse the stairs, killing Styr and his wildlings. So, in the TV show, Jon has an epic sword fight with Styr, but in the book, Jon uses a smart plan to win. After the battle, Jon finds Ygritte wounded. He holds her in his arms, tells her she'll be okay. She says he knows nothing, and she dies. Ygritte showed Jon freedom and love, and that's what makes it meaningful that Jon gives up his love for Ygritte to defend the realm. Jon feels terrible guilt for betraying Ygritte, and that pain never leaves him. Styr is dead, but north of the wall is Mance's army, tens of thousands of wildlings, with cavalry and chariots, and 100 giants riding 100 mammoths. Some mammoths have towers full of bowmen on their backs, like the Oliphants in Lord of the Rings. This is the full strength of the Free Folk, the fury of the wild, come to smash their way south. Jon looks at the wildlings and thinks, "There is no place for you here, go away." And this same line is also in a dream Jon has about Winterfell. The Stark statues tell Jon, "There is no place for you here, go away." It's also similar to when Catelyn tells Jon to go away, "We don't want you here." So Jon's rejection from the Stark family is like how the wildlings are rejected from the realm. The wildlings and Jon are both outcasts, and he feels sympathy for them, but he can't let this army invade his homeland. He's conflicted, but Jon keeps his oath. The Watchmen shoot at the wildlings from atop the wall, while the wildlings try to break the gate into the wall's tunnel. Which doesn't make much sense, because the wildlings can't hurt the Watchmen up on the wall, and the thousands of wildlings can't all attack the gate at once, so most of them just stand around getting shot. Wildlings are not great at tactics. But a giant named Mag the Mighty breaks into the tunnel, and he's stopped by Donal. The great giant and the humble smith die together, and with Donal dead, Jon takes command. This battle continues for days. The Watchmen fix the gate, the wildlings build a ram, so Jon drops barrels of gravel to smash the ram, and the wildlings back off. So again, this is different to the TV show. In the show, Jon fights the wildlings with his sword like a badass, but in the books, Jon stays out of close combat. Jon is only 16 years old in the books, and he's not a great warrior, so instead, Jon uses smart ideas like the barrels and the burning stairs. He plans to improve the wall's defenses with hoardings and turnable trebuchets. Book Jon is not just a fighter, he's a smart leader. So Jon holds the wall, with just 40 men against thousands of wildlings. Then some Night's Watch reinforcements arrive, led by Alliser Thorne and Janos Slynt. Janos was commander of the City Watch in King's Landing. After Janos betrayed Ned Stark, he was sent to the Wall. Janos makes friends with Alliser, who still hates Jon, so together they accuse Jon of joining the wildlings and murdering Qhorin. They use Jon's bastardy and his old gods against him, using prejudice to make Jon look bad. When they insult Ned, Jon gets angry and attacks Alliser. So then, Janos and Alliser send Jon on a suicide mission to kill Mance Rayder. Jon knows this won't work. He's already betrayed Mance. The wildlings will just kill him, but he has no choice. So Jon bravely faces death. Jon had wanted to prove himself worthy and honorable as Ned Stark's true son. But even after all his sacrifices, he's still hated and rejected, seen as a traitor by both wildlings and the Watch. Being heroic doesn't get Jon the love and acceptance that he craves. Jon goes to the wildlings, and Tormund is friendly. They chat about Tormund's family and toast to the memory of Donal, Mag, and Ygritte. There are good people on both sides of this war, so the conflict feels tragic and pointless. Was Jon's victory over the wildlings truly right? Then Jon faces Mance. Mance wants the fighting to end. He says his people have bled enough. The White Walkers have been attacking the wildlings for years, driving them from their land, so the wildlings need to get south of the wall to escape from the dead. The wildlings aren't just invaders, they're refugees. Though Jon knows that some of the wildlings are brutal raiders, so it's not easy to just let the wildlings in. Mance says he has the Horn of Winter, and threatens to use it to destroy the wall, though this horn is probably a fake. Jon considers sacrificing himself to break the horn, but at the last moment the wildlings are attacked by Stannis Baratheon's army. The Night's Watch sent letters to every king in the realm, begging for help against the wildlings, and the only one who shows up to protect the realm is Stannis. Stannis' knights quickly defeat the disorganized wildlings, and Jon protects Mance's wife Dalla as she dies giving birth to a baby. So Stannis saves the Night's Watch. He wants to defeat the White Walkers and to win the Iron Throne. So he needs to take the North, which is currently ruled by the Boltons. Stannis needs a northern leader loyal to him, so Stannis offers to legitimize Jon, to make him legally trueborn, not a bastard. Jon Snow would become Jon Stark, the Lord of Winterfell. This is what Jon has always wanted, to be a true Stark, Ned's heir, to defy the rejection of Catelyn and his envy of Robb, and to claim Winterfell as his home. Stannis also wants to marry Jon to Val, the sister-in-law of King Mance, so that Jon and Val might form an alliance between the North and the Wildlings. Jon is attracted to Val. She's beautiful, capable, and witty. She flirts with Jon, and Jon fantasizes about having children with her at Winterfell. Jon wants this more than anything. But to rule Winterfell, he'd have to leave the Night's Watch, desert his sworn brothers, and Stannis' priestess Melisandre wants Jon to burn the Winterfell weirwood tree and to worship her fire god R'hllor. Jon can't betray his father's gods, the gods of Ghost and of his dreams. So Jon is tempted by Stannis' offer to become a Stark, but the Night's Watch needs Jon. With Commander Jeor dead, the Watch holds an election to choose a new leader. Janos Slynt almost wins the vote, but then Sam does some sneaky political manipulation to help Jon win. Jon doesn't want to be commander, and some Watchmen see Jon as a traitor, a bastard, and a warg. But others think that Jon is a good choice, because he was Commander Jeor's steward, and Ned Stark's son, and Benjen's nephew. He stopped the Wildlings in battle, and Jon also gets support from a raven. Because Jeor Mormont had a talking pet raven, and at the final vote, this raven reappears and says, "Snow, snow," and lands on Jon's shoulder. It's like a sign that Jon should be the next commander. So Jon wins the vote and becomes the 998th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. It's pretty weird that a talking raven helps Jon win an election. This raven often seems intelligent throughout the books, as though it understands human language. Later, the raven seems to give Jon a dream about fighting the dead with a flaming sword and black ice armor, and the raven says "King Snow, Jon Snow," then wakes Jon with a gnarled hand. So some fans think that this raven is magically controlled by Bloodraven. We know that Bloodraven can magically control animals, and he has used ravens to spy in the past, so maybe Bloodraven uses this raven to spy and influence the Watch. It looks like he's guiding Jon to lead the Watch to defeat the White Walkers, and perhaps to become a king. The TV show removes the talking raven and removes Sam's sneaky politics. It takes away the magic and the moral ambiguity and just has Jon win because he's a cool guy. But in the books, Jon becomes commander of the Watch. The Wall is his, the night is dark, and now he's got Stannis to deal with too. In Book 3, Jon tastes freedom and love with Ygritte, but he gives that up for his duty to protect the realm. Stannis offers to make Jon the Stark of Winterfell, his deepest desire, but again Jon sacrifices his desires for the greater good. Jon wants to do the right thing, but it's hard to know which choice is right. The Wildlings show him a whole different perspective on politics and morality. Good and evil are more complex than he thought, and every choice Jon makes has a painful cost. He's lost the Starks, he's lost Ygritte, he's lost friends in battle, leaving Jon wounded and traumatized. He becomes more withdrawn, sad, and isolated, as he struggles to do the right thing in an impossibly complex world. In Book 5, Commander Jon Snow walks a dangerous political tightrope. Jon has to help Stannis, or else Stannis will destroy him. But if he helps Stannis too much, the Lannisters will destroy them. Cersei actually plans to assassinate Jon in the books, but she fails. Jon also needs to make peace between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings before the White Walkers come and kill them all. Can Jon unite everyone to survive this winter? In Book 5 and Season 5, Jon's plotline becomes very different in the books compared to the TV show. In the book, Maester Aemon says, "Kill the boy and let the man be born." Jon must let go of his innocence and weakness, must make hard choices, and do the things that must be done. So Jon makes tough decisions. He sends his best friend Sam far away to the south to become a maester. Sam doesn't want to go, so Jon forces him to leave. Sam feels that Jon has changed. He's not Jon anymore. He's become Lord Snow, a harsh, cold leader. Many characters call him Lord Snow now. It started as Alice's mocking nickname, but now the name is a source of strength, just like Tyrion suggested. Jon also sends Aemon south, because Melisandre wants people with king's blood so she can burn them in magic rituals. Aemon has king's blood because he's a Targaryen, so Jon sends Aemon south to save him from Melisandre, even though Jon knows that Aemon is so old that he might die on this journey, and he does. And Jon makes another harsh decision. He sends Gilly south, but he secretly forces Gilly to abandon her baby, and to instead take Mance and Dalla's baby south. Because King Mance's baby also has king's blood, Melisandre might burn him. So to save him, Jon secretly swaps the babies. Gilly begs Jon to let her keep her child, and Jon does feel terrible, but Lord Snow stays strong and cold, and does what must be done. Jon promises to protect Gilly's baby, like how Ned promised to protect Lyanna's baby, Jon. Jon says goodbye to Sam and Aemon and Gilly, and remembers saying goodbye to Robb. Jon keeps losing the people closest to him. Leadership makes Jon isolated. As Lord Commander, he has to be an authority above his men, so he feels he can't hang out with his friends anymore. Jon sends Grenn and Pip and Ed away to other castles, leaving Jon alone, friendless and vulnerable. He no longer has the advice or protection of loyal friends when he needs them. Jon resigns himself to a cold, lonely life and focuses on his duty. Jon sometimes works all night, barely sleeping. Maybe on some level Jon is punishing himself out of guilt for Ygritte. Jon also spends a lot of time training at combat, because he wants to become a better swordsman. In the books so far, Jon isn't a great warrior, but this training could make him a much better fighter in the final battles. Janos disobeys Jon's orders, so Jon executes Janos. Like Ned, Jon looks in the man's eyes and hears his last words, and then cuts off his head. Previously, Jon chose not to kill Ygritte, and chose not to kill that old man, but this time he does kill. Lord Commander Snow won't tolerate defiance. But killing Janos is also personal, because Janos tried to get Jon killed, and Janos betrayed Ned, so killing Janos is revenge. There's still tension between Jon's duty to the Night's Watch and his love for the Starks. Stannis and Melisandre execute Mance Rayder by burning him alive, though in the books this is a magic illusion, and Mance is secretly still alive, working for Melisandre. Stannis lets 1,000 wildlings through the wall. Melisandre makes them burn a piece of weirwood to symbolize accepting R'hllor as their god, and Stannis shows off his glowing sword, Lightbringer. Melisandre says that Stannis is the prophesied hero, Azor Ahai, but Jon sees that Stannis' sword is not the real Lightbringer, so if Stannis is not the true Messiah, who is? Jon did have that dream of fighting the dead with a burning sword, and when Melisandre looks in her flames for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, she sees Jon Snow. Many in the Night's Watch hate wildlings, think they're all evil barbarians. But Jon learned that wildlings are just people, some bad and some good, like anyone else. The Night's Watch protects the realms of men, and what are these wildlings, if not men? Jon says all the living must unite against the White Walkers. So Jon settles the 1,000 wildlings at Molestown, and he personally brings them food. In the same book, Daenerys brings food to refugees, while she tries to make peace and unity. So Jon and Dany both risk their own lives to end war and protect vulnerable people. Jon convinces some wildlings to join the Night's Watch. He even brings a giant named Wun-Wun to the wall. So with bravery and compassion, Jon turns enemies into allies. Jon gives Stannis advice to help him take the North. He tells Stannis to rally the mountain clans and to fight the Ironborn at Deepwood Motte before he attacks the Boltons at Winterfell. Jon isn't supposed to help Stannis. The Night's Watch is meant to be neutral in southern wars. But the Boltons and Lannisters destroyed Jon's family. He wants Stannis to defeat them. So again, there's tension between Jon's Night's Watch duty and his love for the Starks. Stannis offers again to make Jon the Stark of Winterfell. He says the North would follow Ned's son. And Jon clearly knows a lot about northern politics. He'd be a good Lord of Winterfell. But again, Jon reluctantly refuses. So Stannis and his army march off to war, but he leaves Melisandre and his daughter Shireen and his wife Selyse at the Wall, which is another headache for Jon, because Selyse is a pain in the ass. Melisandre is a priestess of the fire god R'hllor. She sees visions of the future in her flames, and she warns Jon that he's in danger from daggers in the dark. She tells Jon to use her magic power. But Jon doesn't trust Melisandre. He doesn't trust magic. So Melisandre tries to prove her power. Melisandre has a vision that 3 of Jon's rangers will be killed, with their eyes gouged out. And this vision comes true, so maybe Jon should listen to Melisandre. Then Melisandre has a vision of a girl in grey on a dying horse, and she says that this girl is Jon's sister Arya. 'Cause at Winterfell, Ramsay Bolton marries a girl who he says is Arya Stark. The girl actually isn't Arya, she's a girl called Jane, who the Boltons say is Arya, but Jon doesn't know that. So Jon wants to save his sister from the monstrous Ramsay, but he can't do it himself, because his duty is on the Wall. So Melisandre says she'll help by sending Mance Rayder. So Melisandre pretended to kill Mance, but that was a trick. He's actually alive in a magic disguise, apparently under Melisandre's control. So Melisandre and Jon send Mance on a secret mission. Mance and 6 wildling women go to Winterfell to save Arya. It is heroic for Jon to try to save his sister, but it's also risky. The commander of the Night's Watch is not meant to secretly plot with the Wildling King or to take a Northman's wife. Watchmen aren't allowed to help their sisters, only their Watch brothers. Jon is putting love ahead of duty. And it turns out Melisandre is wrong about her vision. A girl in grey does arrive at Castle Black, but it's not Arya, it's Alys Karstark, the heir to House Karstark. Alys's uncle Cregan wants to forcibly marry Alys to take over House Karstark, and he's planning to betray Stannis for the Boltons. So this is another moral dilemma for Jon, because the Night's Watch is not meant to interfere in politics, but Alys begs Jon for help, and she reminds him of Arya. So Jon imprisons Cregan, and he warns Stannis of the betrayal, and he sets up a different marriage for Alys. Jon marries Alys Karstark to Sigorn, the new leader of the Thenn Wildlings. The Wildlings will help Alys claim Carhold, and Jon hopes that this marriage will create unity between Wildlings and the North. At the wedding, Watchmen and Wildlings dance together. It's a beautiful moment of joy and peace between former enemies. But politically, this is dangerous. Many Northmen will be outraged that the Watch married a northern girl to a wildling and helped wildlings take over a northern castle, and by imprisoning Cregan and warning Stannis, Jon has undermined Roose Bolton, the Warden of the North, the ally of King Tommen. Jon has to make bold changes to prepare for the White Walkers, but his radical decisions, his political interference, and his personal biases put the Night's Watch in serious danger. The Night's Watch has lots of problems. They've been in decline for centuries. They don't have enough men. They lost their best leaders like Benjen, Qhorin, and Aemon. And after hosting Stannis and the Wildlings, they don't have enough food for winter. So Jon finds solutions. He meets with Tycho Nestoris from the Iron Bank. In the book, Tycho has a big purple hat. And Jon borrows money from the bank to buy food. He also plans to build greenhouses to grow vegetables in winter. He plans to build beacons along the wall to communicate. Most of the wall's castles are abandoned, so Jon starts manning the castles with watchmen and wildlings. Jon starts to train the men more on archery than on swords, because archery is more useful for defending the wall. Jon talks to Wunwun to learn about the giants, and he wants to learn more about the White Walkers and their zombies, so Jon locks up some corpses to see if they rise from the dead, to try to talk to them. Jon has lots of smart and creative ideas in the book. Compare that to the TV show, where Jon is a brave himbo who just fights bad guys and looks sad. And TV Jon is stubbornly honest. He cannot lie. But book Jon does lie and has secret plans, like when he swaps the babies, and when he sends Mance to Winterfell. He also sends Val to go and find Tormund, even though Jon promised Stannis that he wouldn't. Jon doesn't like breaking his word, he wants to be honourable, but he feels that saving the realm is more important than his honour. Sometimes a lie is the right thing to do. The TV show gives Jon morally uncomplicated conflicts, battles against evil, but book Jon grapples with difficult, ambiguous moral questions. Jon also makes change and justice, because Benjen said that everyone in the Watch has equal opportunities. You get what you earn. But we see that's not true. Waymar Royce gets special privileges because his dad is a lord. Most of the powerful positions in the Watch go to true-born men from noble families. The Watch isn't fair. So Jon changes this by giving important positions to low-born people. Jon makes a wildling the new Master-at-Arms. He gives command of a castle to a low-born guy. And Jon mentors a boy named Saturn. Saturn was a sex worker, and some men hate him for being a boy whore. But Jon sees that Saturn is smart and brave, so Jon makes Saturn his personal steward, potentially training Saturn for command. Because as a bastard, Jon experienced prejudice and injustice. He saw how people like Arya and Sam are discriminated against for being different. So as commander, Jon makes the Watch more fair and more effective, judging people on their ability instead of their social class. These changes anger the more traditional men in the Watch. Bowen Marsh complains. Making change also makes enemies. Beyond the Wall, Tormund leads thousands of wildlings desperate to escape the White Walkers. So Jon plans to let them through the wall. He'll house them in castles along the wall to help fight the White Walkers. He takes all the wildlings' wealth, including a fancy ivory dildo. And to keep the wildlings loyal, he'll take 100 boys as hostages. So the wildlings are angry at Jon's price. And the Watch officers are also outraged. These men dedicated their lives to fighting wildlings. Bowen was recently wounded by wildlings in battle, so Bowen says it's treason to let the enemy through the wall. But Jon insists that they must unite everyone against the White Walkers, so he'll let all the wildlings through, even the brutal raiders who gouged the eyes out of those rangers. Jon is determined to save everyone, but he fails to compromise, and he fails to convince important people of his plan. He also doesn't communicate well. Jon doesn't even tell Bowen about his loan from the Iron Bank, so Jon makes political mistakes. There are also thousands of wildlings at a village called Hardhome. In the TV show, Jon leads a mission to save them, and he kills a White Walker, but that doesn't happen in the books. In the book, Jon sends some men to save the wildlings, and we hear it goes badly. There's dead things in the woods, and dead things in the water. Ultimately, Jon lets the wildlings through the wall, and in the TV show, that's why Alliser and the Watchmen kill Jon. Jon does the right thing, and he dies for it. It's morally uncomplicated in the show. But in the book, there's more to it. In the book, Jon gets a letter from Ramsay Bolton. Ramsay says that Stannis is dead, defeated in battle. Ramsay says he has Mance prisoner and accuses Jon of stealing his bride, because with the help of Mance's wildlings, the fake Arya escapes Winterfell. So Ramsay demands that Jon give him Arya and Val and Selyse and Melisandre, or else he'll cut out Jon's bastard heart and eat it. There are lots of theories about this letter, like that Stannis isn't really dead, and that maybe someone other than Ramsay may have written this letter. But the letter is a huge threat to the Night's Watch, and it's kind of Jon's fault, because as commander of the Watch, Jon was meant to be politically neutral, but Jon helped Stannis and helped Alice and sent Mance to take Ramsay's wife. Because of Jon's bias for Stannis and the Starks, he brings the wrath of the Boltons upon the Watch. All through Book 5, Jon tried to balance love and duty, but this letter forces him to choose. Will he submit to Ramsay to save the Watch, or will he fight for Arya and Winterfell? Jon thinks about Robb and Bran and Rickon and Sansa and Arya, and he decides to fight. Jon publicly reads Ramsay's letter, revealing his secret manse plot, and Jon declares that he'll ride south to fight Ramsay at Winterfell. He also says that Tormund will lead the Night's Watch on another wildly dangerous mission to Hardhome. So the wildlings rally behind Jon, but the Night's Watch are furious. Jon is publicly breaking his oath, deserting the Wall, involving the Night's Watch in a war, and that's why Jon is killed in the books. First, there's a distraction. The giant Wun kills a knight called Sir Patrick. And this is a hidden reference to football. The giant represents one of George Martin's favourite teams, the New York Giants. And Sir Patrick represents George's friend Patrick St. Denis, who supports the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys' logo is a blue star, so Patrick's heraldry is a blue star. And this football Easter egg happens right before Jon is killed. Jon tries to calm everyone down and stop the violence, but in the chaos, Bowen Marsh and 3 others stab Jon, and Jon falls, bleeding, into the snow. The killing of Jon Snow is similar to the killing of ancient Roman leader Julius Caesar. Jon and Caesar are both seen as a political threat, so they're stabbed to death by their own men. Even small details of these attacks are the same, and George is a fan of Roman history and of Shakespeare's Caesar play, so he was clearly taking inspiration here. Caesar was killed on the Ides of March, and Jon is stabbed by Bowen Marsh, so some fans call Jon's killing the Ides of Marsh. In the TV show, Jon's assassination is led by the cruel and vindictive Alliser Thorne, but in the books it's led by Bowen, and Bowen doesn't hate Jon. Bowen is not evil. Even Jon thinks that Bowen is a good man. When Bowen stabs Jon, Bowen cries. He feels that he's forced to kill Jon for the Night's Watch, because Jon did break his oath and endanger the Watch out of love for the Starks. So, in Book 5, Jon makes tough moral choices, plotting and politicking to save lives, make peace, and protect the realm. He tries to balance duty with love, helping Arya and Alice and Stannis, but when Jon is forced to choose between the Watch and the Starks, he chooses love. Love is the death of duty, and it's the death of Jon Snow. So what happens next? George Martin is still writing the next books to finish the series, but there's lots of foreshadowing and theories about what will happen in the Winds of Winter. In the TV show, Jon gets resurrected. When he comes back to life, he's tired and sad, borderline suicidal for a while, but his personality stays mostly the same. In the books, death will change Jon. George Martin says death is a transformative experience. His characters who come back from death have lost something. When Beric Dondarrion dies and is resurrected, he loses his memories and his identity. When Catelyn dies and is resurrected, she becomes a scary zombie called Lady Stoneheart, who's consumed with hate and revenge. George says that if someone suffers a violent, traumatic death, they're not going to come back as nice as ever. So, how will death change Jon? In the TV show, Jon's resurrection is simple. Melisandre gives him a prayer and a haircut, and he comes back to life. But in the books, Jon's resurrection will be complicated, because there are hints that Jon's soul will go inside his direwolf ghost. The books explain that when a skin changer dies, their spirit can live on in their animal. It's called a second life. We saw Orell live on in his eagle after he died. Then we see the skin changer Varamir live on in his wolf. Varamir thinks that Jon is a powerful warg, and that Ghost would be a second life worthy of a king. Melisandre has a vision of Jon being a man, then a wolf, then a man again, hinting that Jon will live inside Ghost for a while, then will come back in his human body. In Book 5, Jon's connection with Ghost gets stronger. He feels that he and Ghost are one, and when Jon is stabbed, his last word is Ghost. So these are strong hints that Jon's ghost will live on in Ghost for a while. But why? The books say that skin changing changes your personality. It makes you more like your animal. When someone has a second life in their wolf, their human memory slowly fades till only the beast remains. So being in Ghost could make Jon less human and more wolfish. Ned says that Brandon and Lyanna Stark had the wolf blood, making them wild and reckless. Jon is sometimes aggressive and impulsive in the books. He attacks Alyssa twice, and has a violent outburst in training. Usually, Jon controls these emotions, suppresses his desires. He thinks, I am a man, not a wolf. But being murdered and then soul-merged with his beast might finally unleash Jon's wolf blood, making him a more reckless, dangerous character, more focused on his own desires. And this would be similar to Daenerys' storyline, because in Book 5, like Jon, Daenerys tries to make peace. She suppresses her own desires for the sake of politics and the greater good. But at the end of the book, like Jon, she has a downfall, and this crisis changes her. As she wanders the Dothraki Sea alone, she has visions from Quaithe that remind her of her Targaryen identity. Daenerys rejects peace and embraces her desires for fire and blood, and to go home to Westeros. So Jon might embrace his desires to go home to Winterfell, and Jon could also have visions. He's already had visions from Bloodraven and from Bran through Ghost, so maybe as a spirit in Ghost he'll have more visions. Jon could find out that Bran and Rickon are still alive. Bloodraven could tell him his destiny to become king in the north and defeat the White Walkers, to fulfill the prophecy of Azor Ahai. Visions could reveal secrets, unlock power, and give Jon new purpose to pursue his destiny. Though, in this world, visions and dreams can be destructive. Sinister forces might use visions to influence people. Can Jon trust his visions, or is Bloodraven manipulating him? Jon's spirit could stay in Ghost for a while. Maybe as a wolf he'll roam beyond the wall and find Uncle Benjen, or learn the secrets of the White Walkers. He could go to Hardhome, or help Bran come south. He could have lots of adventures, gallivanting through the woods in the brain of a wolf, tripping on visions. But Jon won't be a dog forever. Eventually, he'll be resurrected in his human body. And like in the TV show, it'll probably be Melisandre who does it. In the book, Melisandre says, "You'll have grave need of me, and I am your only hope." When Jon is resurrected, there might be a cost. Because when Beric resurrects Stoneheart, Beric dies. When Miri heals Drogo, Daenerys' baby dies. When Daenerys hatches dragons, Miri dies. Melisandre says only death can pay for life. A great gift requires a great sacrifice. So what sacrifice will pay for Jon's life? Maybe Melisandre will sacrifice herself, or maybe Ghost will die. If Jon and Ghost's spirits are merged together, will there be anything left of Ghost to live in Ghost's body? Melisandre says King's blood is a particularly powerful sacrifice, so maybe the sacrifice will be King Mance, or King Stannis, or Princess Shireen. Melisandre prophesies that King's blood will wake a dragon from stone, and Shireen has stony grayscale, so maybe the dragon is Jon Targaryen, awoken from the sacrifice of stony Shireen. It's also possible that no one will die, because when Thoros resurrects Beric, no one dies. Instead, the cost is Beric's humanity. He loses his memories and identity, so maybe it'll be the same with Jon. He'll come back to life, but at the cost of his soul. In the TV show, after his resurrection, Jon looks the same, just with some sexy new scars. But in the books, Jon's appearance might change, Because when Catelyn is resurrected, her hair goes white and her eyes go red. Theon's hair goes white after his symbolic death and rebirth. So maybe Jon will also get white hair and red eyes, because that would have a lot of symbolic meaning. Ghost has white hair and red eyes, like Bloodraven and the Weirwoods. White hair would make Jon look more like a Targaryen, like his father Rhaegar, and red eyes would be like Melisandre's red eyes, connecting Jon to the fire god R'hllor. George says that Beric is a white animated by fire instead of by ice. So will Jon be a fire white, or will he be an ice white, like Cold Hands? Maybe Bloodraven and Melisandre's magic could both help resurrect Jon, combining the old gods and R'hllor, Stark and Targaryen, making Jon a white of ice and fire. Patchface calls Jon the Crow and says under the sea the crows are white as snow. Under the sea is a metaphor for death, so this could be a hint that undead Jon will have white hair and pale skin. When Jon was a kid, he once covered himself in flour to make himself pale white like a ghost. In the TV show, they call Jon the White Wolf. So there are lots of hints that Jon's death will give him pale skin, white hair, and red eyes, showing that he's not just back to normal, Jon is changed. He's undead. There are perks to being undead. Beric and Cold Hands and Melisandre don't need to eat or sleep. It could be useful for Jon to not have to eat or sleep if he has to fight a war or travel the frozen north, but there are downsides to being undead. Beric loses memories. Stoneheart can hardly speak. They look like ugly, scary zombies. They're wounded and rotted. Their hearts don't beat. Will Jon become a hideous zombie? If his heart doesn't beat, will his penis still work? That could be disappointing for Daenerys. One theory is that after he's killed, Jon's corpse will be kept in an ice cell in the wall. Bran has a vision of Jon sleeping in a cold bed with his skin growing pale and cold, and Aemon says that the cold of the wall preserves. So an ice cell might prevent Jon's body from rotting. And, unlike Beric and Catelyn, Jon is a warg. His spirit won't die, it'll live on in ghost, so maybe that will help to protect his mind and memories. So hopefully Jon won't be too much of a zombie, but he will have changed. Aemon said, "Kill the boy and let the man be born." Jon the boy has been killed, so what new man will be born? Living in Ghost could unleash his wolf blood, make him more violent and reckless. He might have visions from Bloodraven, giving him revelations and new purpose. He might look different, with white hair and red eyes, a white of ice and fire. The Night's Watch oath says, "My watch won't end until my death." So, after Jon's death, he's arguably free from his vows. He can finally leave the Night's Watch. So, what will Jon do in the Winds of Winter? After Catelyn and Beric's resurrections, they focus on their final missions. Catelyn wants revenge for the Red Wedding. Beric fights in the Riverlands. George says that that purpose is part of what's animating him. So, after Jon's resurrection, he might be focused on his final mission, to fight Ramsay, save Arya, and take Winterfell. He can finally do what he's wanted to do since Book 1, ride south. In the TV show, Stannis dies, and Jon fights the Battle of the Bastards to beat the Boltons and take Winterfell. But in the books, it might be Stannis who defeats the Boltons. There are hints that he'll fake his own death and will win a battle on a frozen lake. So by the time Jon gets to Winterfell, Stannis might have already won the war. There could be multiple battles. Jon might fight Ramsay later. The Stark direwolves might be involved, symbolizing Jon reuniting with his Stark wolf pack. But if Jon does fight the Boltons, it won't be like the TV show. It won't just be Jon surviving through dumb luck and punching Ramsay in the face 21 times. Like all of Book Jon's conflicts, it'll be a moral and emotional test. In the TV show, Ramsay has Jon's brother Rickon, and Jon tries to save Rickon, but Rickon dies anyway. There's no meaningful choice or lesson here for TV Jon. Rickon's death just happens. But maybe in the book, Jon will make a moral choice. Like maybe Ramsay will tell Jon not to attack, or else he'll kill Rickon. But since Jon is now more reckless, and because he wants Winterfell, Jon attacks anyway, and causes Rickon's death. This would show that Jon has changed, that he's willing to risk innocent lives to get what he wants. And this could also create conflict between Jon and Sansa, who might blame Jon for Rickon's death. Jon could finally reclaim the home of the Starks, but at the cost of alienating his Stark siblings, losing the very family he always wanted. This is just speculation, but Jon's battles in the Winds of Winter will explore what kind of person he's become after his resurrection. What will Jon sacrifice to take Winterfell? Once the Boltons are defeated, Stannis might go to the Night Fort and die there, possibly killed by White Walkers after he sacrifices Shireen. So who will rule Winterfell and the North? In the TV show, the Northern Lords make Jon the king in the North, even though it should be Sansa who gets Winterfell, because she's the eldest known surviving true-born Stark. In the show, the Lords ignore the line of succession and just make Jon king because he's a cool guy. But in the books, Jon has an actual legal claim to Winterfell, because in Book 3, Robb Stark wants Jon to be his heir as king in the North. He considers legitimizing Jon to make him a true Stark, not a bastard. So Robb writes a will, and the books don't show us what the will says, but it probably names Jon as the next king in the North. Not everyone knows about Robb's will, but Mage Mormont and Galbert Glover know, and they go to Howland Reed in the Neck. Howland was at the Tower of Joy, where Jon was born, so he might know about Jon's real parents. Mage's daughter is with Stannis' army, with the Mountain Clansmen, and 2 clan leaders visit Jon, and Jon suspects that these guys have some secret purpose. Edmure also knows about Robb's will, and 2 of Edmure's men go up to the wall. Stoneheart knows about Robb's will, and she has Robb's crown, and she travels to the Neck, where Howland and Mage and Galbert are. So there's a theory that these characters have a conspiracy to make Jon king in the North, because the North remembers Ned Stark's legacy of leadership, and Jon is seen as the heir to that legacy. That's why Alice Karstark comes to Jon, because he's Ned Stark's son. That means something in the North. So these Northmen might reveal Robb's will and declare Jon the king in the North. The problem with that is that there are 2 other northern conspiracies happening. Lord Wyman Manderley plans to make Rickon Lord of Winterfell. Littlefinger plans to use Sansa and the Vale to claim the North. Plus, Bran is still alive, and the real Arya will return, and all of these Starks arguably have a better claim to Winterfell than Jon does. Robb's will was written on the assumption that Bran and Rickon were dead, so is Robb's will definitive? Does a legitimized bastard like Jon come before a true-born child like Sansa? The laws of succession in Westeros are vague and subjective, and there are lots of different political factions at play here. This could be a messy inheritance struggle, dividing the Stark family, and creating deep conflict within Jon. He'll be torn between his loyalty to his siblings and his desire to be the Stark of Winterfell. In the TV show, Jon doesn't want to be the king in the North. It's another thing that just happens to TV Jon, without his choice. Then there's this weird conflict where Sansa is envious of Jon, and Arya threatens to kill Sansa. It's one of the worst plotlines in the show, partly because Jon has no agency or stakes in the conflict because he doesn't want Winterfell. But in the books, Jon does want Winterfell. As a boy, he used to dream that one day Winterfell might be his. Jon has a dream where he cuts off Robb's head and screams, "I am the Lord of Winterfell." When Stannis offers him Winterfell, Jon wants it more than anything. And his resurrection might make him even more focused on his own desires. Jon could be a great king in the North. He's an experienced leader, he's smart and compassionate, He knows about northern politics, he's respected by Northmen, he wants to make peace and unify against the White Walkers. There's lots of foreshadowing that Jon will be a king. It seems like his destiny. But becoming king in the north will have a cost. He might get Rickon killed or piss off Sansa. He might get lots of wildlings killed in battle, and the Night's Watch could fall apart without him. To become the Stark of Winterfell, Jon might lose his families, lose the Watch, lose the wildlings, lose the Starks, and without them, what's the point of having Winterfell? Jon was never close with Sansa or Rickon, but he loves Arya. Throughout the books, Jon and Arya miss each other often and try to reunite. Jon dies largely because he wants to save Arya, so it'll be super emotional when they finally get back together. In the TV show, this is a mostly happy reunion, but in the books, it could be darker and sadder. Because Jon and Arya have been through so much. Arya suffered at Harrenhal, joined a death cult, murdered people, and she's still just 11 years old. Jon lost his lover, fought in battles, got murdered. They're both traumatized by death and have lost their identities. Jon is not just Jon the Bastard anymore. He's now an undead Stark king. He's Lord Snow, not Jon. And Arya has changed her name and her face so many times that she's not Arya, she's no one. Jon and Arya have changed so much that they might not recognize each other. In the books, characters often don't recognize each other, like Theon and Asha don't recognize each other. It shows how characters have changed, exploring themes of identity and perception. Arya is constantly not recognized by people, and she specifically worries that Jon won't recognize her, and Jon wonders if he'll recognize Arya. Jon has already met a fake Arya. He thought Alice was Arya, but she wasn't, and Ramsay's wife Jane is another fake Arya, so when Jon finally meets the real Arya, he might think she's another fake. They could recognize each other later, but the point could be that after everything they've been through, Jon and Arya can't have their happy, innocent relationship ever again. So Winterfell might not be the happy homecoming Jon wanted, because the Starks have changed, the family may be divided. Jon's identity is still torn between the Starks and the Watch and the Wildlings, and his hidden Targaryen identity haunting his dreams. Maybe Jon will abdicate as king in the north and let Sansa rule instead, because Jon has more wars to fight. The White Walkers are coming, and Daenerys will arrive with her dragons. In A Dream of Spring, Jon will fight the final battles of ice and fire. In the TV show, Jon and Daenerys fall in love, and there are hints this will happen in the books too. Daenerys has a vision of a blue flower on a wall of ice filling the air with sweetness. The flower could be Jon, because his mother Lyanna loved blue roses, and the sweetness could be Jon and Daenerys' love. Jon and Dany have a lot in common. They're both young leaders who want to protect people. They both want family and home. They've both suffered trauma and loss and transformative magic. Jon is attracted to confident, capable women, like Ygritte, like Val, and like Dany. And Daenerys is attracted to bad boy warriors with great hair, like Drogo and Daario. Jon may be more violent and have cooler hair after his resurrection. So it makes sense that Jon and Dany could fall in love. They also work as a political alliance. King Jon and Queen Daenerys could unite the North and South. Icy Jon and Fiery Daenerys fit the series title, A Song of Ice and Fire. Daenerys' dragons are the perfect weapon to destroy the army of the dead, so together they could burn the White Walkers, get married, have babies, and rule Westeros happily ever after. What could go wrong? Jon will learn the truth about his parents. That he's not Ned's bastard, he's the son of Lyanna Stark with Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Jon is arguably the rightful king of Westeros, and if Rhaegar and Lyanna were secretly married, like in the TV show, Jon is a true-born Targaryen, not a bastard. And there are a few ways Jon could discover this. Howland Reed might tell Jon, because Howland was there when Jon was born, and George Martin has teased that Howland will be important. Or maybe Benjen will tell Jon about his parents. It would be more emotionally impactful for Jon to learn the truth from his beloved uncle. Benjen and Howland were both at the Harrenhal tourney, where Rhaegar and Lyanna probably got together, so they could tell Jon what his parents' relationship was really like. Like in the TV show, Jon may learn this in the Winterfell crypts. Jon has those recurring dreams of the crypts, where he's searching for his father, and he has to come down here. There are theories that Jon will find proof of his parents in the crypts, like Rhaegar's harp or a hidden message in Lyanna's tomb. There are rumours of hidden dragon eggs in the crypts, which could be a metaphor for Jon discovering his dragon identity. George uses the same metaphor with egg hatching into a Targaryen. And Jon discovering his identity in the stone crypts could fulfill the prophecy of a dragon waking from stone. Jon will enter the crypts as Ned's bastard, and will emerge a Targaryen dragon. So what will the truth of his parents mean to him? Jon might be angry that Ned lied, that Jon was never a bastard. He might be horrified that his mother Lyanna was a teenager who died birthing him, and that Prince Rhaegar hooked up with her probably to fulfill a prophecy, sparking a war that killed thousands. Jon's grandfather was the evil Mad King. That's like finding out that your dad is Darth Vader. And Jon's lover, Daenerys, is his aunt, which is like finding out Princess Leia is your sister. It's like poetry, it rhymes. In the TV show, Jon doesn't want to be a Targaryen. But for this revelation to have meaning, it's gotta have some impact on Jon. Because Jon's story was always a search for identity. He felt rejected by the Starks, and that's why he joined the Night's Watch. Why he was tempted by the Wildlings and by Stannis' offer. Being a Targaryen could finally give Jon a family. He'd be royalty alongside Queen Daenerys, with ancestral homes at King's Landing and Dragonstone. In the show, Jon gets a new name, Aegon Targaryen. In the books, there's already several Aegons, so Jon's name might be Aemon or Jaehaerys Targaryen. Even as a child, Jon felt connected to Targaryens. He idolized King Daeron Targaryen. Maester Aemon Targaryen was Jon's beloved mentor, and with Daenerys, he could further explore his Targaryen side. Jon could bond with the dragon Rhaegal, who was named after Jon's father, Rhaegar. When Jon rides Rhaegal in flight, experiences that joy and power, he may embrace a Targaryen identity. In the books, there's a magical connection between dragon and rider. Jon might start to have dragon dreams, visions of future triumph and doom, because dragons represent the intoxicating lure of power, of ambition and destruction. Dragons could wake the fire in Jon's blood, connecting him to his Targaryen heritage and to Daenerys' war for the throne. In the TV show, Jon doesn't want to be king of Westeros, but Book Jon might want his rightful throne, because he's always wanted justice and to protect the innocent. With the Wildlings, he learned a whole new political ideology of freedom and equality. He has increasingly used political power to make change. In Book 5, he tries to unite the North to save the world, but he fails and dies because he doesn't have enough power. If Jon took the Iron Throne as a Targaryen dragon king, maybe then he could unite the realm, save the world, and do justice. Much like Jon's great-great-grandfather, King Egg, Aegon V. Because Egg also wanted to do justice and to protect the vulnerable, but he was frustrated by rebellions. So Egg tried to get dragons so that he could use their power for good. But in the end, Egg's quest for dragons led to death and tragedy at Summerhall. Daenerys also seems headed for destruction, despite her good intentions. So, like other Targaryens, Jon will be tempted by the power of fire and blood, embodied by his dragon Rhaegal. He'll want to use this power for good, but he'll see that dragons are destructive. They kill innocent people. Fire burns. In the TV show, Daenerys fights a war against Cersei, but in the books she might fight young Griff, a false dragon who claims to be a Targaryen. Their war could be a new dance of the dragons, and everywhere the dragons danced, the people died. Daenerys' war will cause death and devastation. So Jon will ask himself, is it okay to kill innocent people to win the throne? He may be tempted to make sacrifices, but Jon will also think of Ned Stark's morality. Ned taught justice, mercy, to protect the innocent. Donal taught Jon empathy for common folk. The wildlings taught him the precious, fleeting beauty of life. If Jon burns thousands to save the realm, what has he saved, and what has he become? This is a moral struggle, and it's also a question of identity. Is Jon destined to be a fiery Targaryen because he has Rhaegar's blood? Or can he choose to be like Ned, the father who raised Jon? This is the song of ice and fire, the battle within Jon's heart. Jon might also be tempted by Melisandre, because in Book 5, Melisandre urges Jon to use her magic and visions. Jon doesn't trust Melisandre at first, but throughout the book she gradually wins him over. She makes a bunch of correct predictions, so in his last chapter, Jon wants to use Melisandre's visions. When Jon is killed by daggers in the dark, and then resurrected by Melisandre, that will prove her power even more. In the TV show, after Stannis dies, Melisandre says that Jon is the prophesied hero, Azor Ahai. TV Jon is not interested in prophecy, but Book Jon might listen. Because Book Jon reads about Azor Ahai. He dreams of fighting the dead with a flaming sword. After he's reborn as a fire wight with the magic of R'hllor, he may believe that he's destined to save the world, like Rhaegar did before him. So Jon may accept Melisandre's help. She could help him understand the prophecy and how to use its power. But unfortunately, her help involves burning innocent people alive and killing your own brother with magic shadows. Her advice leads Stannis down a dark path that will probably destroy Stannis. And Melisandre is often wrong about her visions. Her power is treacherous, and her religion is dangerous. In the TV show, after Jon's resurrection, Tormund says that people think Jon is a god. Then the TV show drops that idea. But in the books, religion is increasingly important. The Sparrows rise up and imprison Queen Cersei. The Eastern Red Priests say Daenerys is Azor Ahai and demand a holy war. At Castle Black, Melisandre has religious followers, including Baratheon knights and some watchmen and wildlings. So when Jon miraculously rises from the dead, he could be seen as a religious messiah. Fanatical followers could rally behind him, giving Jon the power to unite armies and win wars. But the Red God is hungry and jealous, demanding human sacrifice and the destruction of other religions. Daenerys might also ally with Red Priests, which could lead to religious war in Westeros, between Jon and Dany with the Red God and young Griff with the Faith of the Seven. If Jon uses the power of Melisandre and R'hllor, he's playing with fire. So Jon will be torn between Targaryen R'hlloric firepower and his icy Stark morality, and this war for his heart will climax when he faces the White Walkers. While Jon is in the south, things will get bad at the Wall. The Night's Watch could fall apart, Stannis is doomed, and the Wall will fall. In the TV show, the White Walkers use a zombie dragon to break the Wall. In the books, it might be Euron who breaks the Wall, with the Horn of Winter, or by stealing one of Daenerys' dragons. But the Wall will fall, and the dead will march south. In the TV show, the battle against the White Walkers lasts one night, one episode at Winterfell. But in the books, this could be a long, grinding, apocalyptic conflict that ravages Westeros. The previous long night is said to have lasted a generation, years of cold and sunless skies, causing mass starvation. This darkness might be caused by a meteor strike, There are legends of fallen stars and comets associated with the Long Night. There are tales of the White Walkers hunting humans with giant ice spiders, as well as their zombie hordes. So the Long Night could be a dark, magical apocalypse, an age of wonder and terror for gods and heroes. The world will need a savior. In the TV show, Arya kills the White Walkers, but in the books, Jon is set up as the hero. He swore the Watch Oath, he's fought the dead, he's had those prophetic dreams. So how will he stop the White Walkers? In the TV show, the good guys all unite for a big battle to destroy the White Walkers. But is this what the books are leading up to? George Martin criticizes simplistic stories of good guys fighting bad guys. He said, "We don't need any more dark lords and hordes of orcs." George writes morally complex conflicts. Where's the moral challenge here? With the wildlings, Jon realized that his enemies aren't evil, so instead he made peace with them. Is it possible that Jon could also make peace with the White Walkers? Jon wants to learn about the White Walkers, wants to communicate with them, and in the books, the White Walkers can talk. They have their own language, they make things out of ice. George calls them beautiful, elegant, a different sort of life. Maybe the White Walkers have a right to exist. In Book 5, Patrick jokes that Jon will offer the White Walkers hospitality, will welcome them as guests. So maybe Jon will. There are theories that Jon won't destroy the White Walkers. Instead, he'll make a peace deal. It is possible to make agreements with the White Walkers, like Craster gives babies to the White Walkers so they don't attack him. And there's the legend of the Night's King. The Night's King was a commander of the Night's Watch who married a cold woman with blue eyes and made sacrifices to the White Walkers. So there are theories that the previous Long Night ended not with a war, but with a marriage pact, where the Night's King married a White and the Watch agreed to give them babies. There are theories that the Starks are descended from the Night's King and his queen, and that Jon is owed or promised to the White Walkers, that they want him to become a new Night's King. Maybe, while Jon is dead, the White Walkers will take over Jon's body, just like they raised those Whites in Book 1. Jon does have a dream where he's armored in ice. Maybe his body will be influenced or marked by the White Walkers. The Night's King fell in love with a pale woman with blue eyes, so maybe the Walkers will tempt Jon with a pale blue-eyed woman, like the wildling Val. In Book 5, Val wears a striking white outfit with her blue eyes and a weirwood pin. If she dies, maybe she could then become a zombie seductress to Jon. Jon might get visions from the White Walkers telling him to marry her, that this is the only way to end the Long Night. Jon could become Lord Snow of the Night Fort, and by giving Val his magic seed and sacrificing a few babies, he could make peace between the White Walkers and humanity. This could be tempting, but marrying a zombie and sacrificing babies to ice demons is maybe not a good peace agreement. It's really a moral corruption, a deal with the devil. The Night's King and Craster's deals didn't permanently stop the White Walkers, so whatever temptation the White Walkers offer, Jon should refuse them. Because the White Walkers might not be evil Dark Lords, but they're also not misunderstood moral people. They seem more like a destructive force of nature, an imbalance in the seasons. They are a contrast to humanity, and a reason for humanity to unite. Unlike the petty, destructive wars of lords, the war against the White Walkers really is worth fighting, for the survival of life itself. George Martin writes about the evil of war, but he does say some wars are necessary, like stopping the Nazis in World War II. So Jon should not make a deal with the White Walkers. It's prophesied that the hero must fight this darkness. The prophecy says that Azor Ahai, or the prince that was promised, will be reborn to lead the fight against the darkness. When Melisandre looks in her flames for Azor Ahai, she sees Jon Snow. As a Stark and a Targaryen, Jon is of ice and fire, and Rhaegar says of the hero that his is the song of ice and fire. Jon is literally a prince who was promised when Ned promised Lyanna. It's prophesied that Azor Ahai will be descended from Aerys Targaryen, and Jon is Aerys's grandson. It's prophesied that Azor Ahai will wake dragons from stone, and Jon will wake his dragon identity in these stone crypts. It's prophesied that Azor Ahai will be reborn beneath a bleeding star, amidst smoke and salt, and there are bloody stars and smoke and salty tears when Jon is killed. It's said that Azor Ahai will wield a flaming sword called Lightbringer. This could be a metaphor for dragons, but it could also be a literal flaming sword. Undead Beric can light a sword on fire with his blood, so maybe undead Jon will light his sword on fire with his blood. It might be that the Dane sword, Dawn, is the true Lightbringer, so maybe Jon will get Dawn and will light it on fire to make it Lightbringer. It all fits. Jon could be Azor Ahai reborn. Daenerys also fits the prophecy pretty well, so Jon and Daenerys might both play a role. The original Azor Ahai forged Lightbringer by sacrificing his beloved wife. In the TV show, Arya destroys the White Walkers by killing their leader, the Night King. In the books so far, there is no Night King, but Melisandre says the White Walkers are controlled by the Great Other, the god of ice and darkness, whose name may not be spoken. This nameless White Walker god sounds like the old gods, the gods of the weirwood trees, who are also described as nameless. In the show, and probably also in the books, the White Walkers were created by the Children of the Forest with the magic of the old gods, and the White Walkers are often associated with trees. So maybe the Great Other is some kind of evil offshoot of the old gods. In the TV show, we see a frozen weirwood tree where the White Walkers were created. In the books, Bran sees the Heart of Winter, which seems to be the center of White Walker power in the far, far north. So maybe the Great Other is here, at the Heart of Winter, an evil spirit in a frozen tree controlling the White Walkers. And to defeat them, Jon has to destroy this tree. YouTuber David Lightbringer has videos on this theory. He points out that in the TV show, Beric stabs a spiral of corpses with his flaming sword, which could represent burning the spiral frozen tree. This could be Jon's destiny, and to destroy the Great Other, he must journey north. George Martin said that in the final books we'll see further north than ever before. The journey could be similar to the legend of the Last Hero. The Last Hero set out into the Deadlands with a dragon steel sword and a dog and his friends, and got the help of the Children of the Forest to defeat the White Walkers. So maybe Jon will journey north with his sword and his dog, guided by Bran's magic. He could assemble an all-star team of badass rangers to join them, fighting the dead, dying one by one. For the final stretch north, beyond the curtain of light at the end of the world, Jon and Daenerys might fly north on their dragons. Maybe Jon will convince Daenerys that the war against the White Walkers is more important than her war for the Iron Throne, that their duty to the realm matters more than their desires. So Jon and Daenerys will face the Heart of Winter, and to destroy the White Walkers they'll need to do more than just burn a tree, because the legends of Azor Ahai and the themes of Jon's story emphasize sacrifice and tough moral choices. The original Azor Ahai killed his wife as a sacrifice to make the sword Lightbringer, so maybe Jon has to kill Daenerys to get her fire into his sword to burn the Great Other. Maybe Daenerys will willingly offer her life to save the world. Will Jon kill his lover? Jon has made sacrifices. He sacrificed Ygritte to protect the realm. He took Gilly's baby to save another. He risked the Night's Watch to save Arya. This could be Jon's ultimate choice between duty and love. Will he kill Daenerys to save the world? Bloodraven and Melisandre might tell Jon that it's worth sacrificing one person for the world, that Jon must take this fiery power and rule as the last Dragon Lord, that it's his destiny because of the prophecy and his magic blood. But this series questions fantasy tropes like destiny, prophecy, and special bloodlines. The magic Targaryen dynasty was often a disaster. Their flawed personalities and their dragons caused terrible destruction.
They're bonkers, aren't they?
They are bonkers.
They're absolutely mad, the Targaryens. They're a right old bunch.
Special bloodlines put awful kings on the throne. The whole feudal class system is a horrific injustice. The moral of this story is not going to be that Jon deserves power because of his Targaryen blood. And prophecy often backfires, like at Summerhall and with Rhaegar and with Stannis. Prophecy will bite your prick off every time. So Jon should not blindly follow prophecy, especially not the prophecy of Azor Ahai. That dude killed his wife to get a sword. Is he really a hero? There's a suspiciously similar legend about the evil Bloodstone Emperor who killed the Amethyst Empress to steal her power. The legendary Grey King killed a female dragon and stole fire power. The Winged Knight married a child of the forest who then died in childbirth, and he rode a dragon. All these legends are of a man who killed a woman and got magic power, and half these guys seem like evil tyrants, not saviors. It might be that the original Azor Ahai actually caused the Long Night, not ended it. Killing some magic woman might have been the original sin, the fire stolen from the gods that unbalanced the cosmos in the first place. Whatever the original Azor Ahai did, it didn't destroy the White Walkers. They came back. So why should Jon repeat this cycle of violence by sacrificing Dany? This choice will define Jon's morality and his identity. Because Jon has the magic blood, he could fulfill the prophecy, sacrifice Daenerys, and rule. But what makes Jon special, what makes him a worthy hero, is not his blood or a prophecy. Jon is a hero because of his choices. Jon learned humility and compassion at the Watch. He was raised as Ned Stark's bastard, and Ned taught him justice and mercy. Jon thinks of Ned when he spares Ygritte. He thinks of Ned when he spares that old man. Surely, when Jon faces Daenerys at the heart of winter, he'll again think of Ned and will spare Daenerys. In Book 1, Ned himself tells Robert to not kill Daenerys, so now Jon can do the same. He can become Ned's true heir by sparing Daenerys. He can reject the temptation of fiery power and prophecy, just as he rejects the White Walkers, and instead make a human, moral choice. Instead of killing Daenerys, Jon might sacrifice himself. Jon has often been willing to give his life for others. In Book 3, he thinks that if he has to die to save the North, then that's what he'll do. Corran taught Jon that self-sacrifice is the meaning of the Night's Watch oath. So after all Jon's struggle with his vows, he could, in the end, keep his oath by giving his life to destroy the White Walkers. Daenerys could stab Jon to forge Lightbringer, or he could stab himself, impale himself on the frozen tree like Odin, giving up his fiery Targaryen blood to burn the Great Other. A heroic self-sacrifice could be a fitting ending to Jon's story, like his fantasy of a glorious death back in Book 1. It's almost too easy. Here's another possibility. Instead of killing himself or killing Daenerys, maybe Jon will sacrifice his dragon, Rhaegal. Because Rhaegal represents Jon's Targaryen side. Rhaegal gives him the power of fire and of flight. Rhaegal is named for Jon's father, represents his legitimacy as a Targaryen king. If Jon kills Rhaegal, he gives up that power. In all the history and lore of this world, there are no examples of a dragon rider killing their own dragon. Because of the magic bond, it would be like killing part of yourself. Killing Rhaegal would be a profound sacrifice, and it could finally resolve Jon's identity crisis. Jon could finally reject his destructive Targaryen side and instead follow Ned Stark's moral example, giving up his own power to save others. because Jon is not defined by his blood. He's not a Targaryen. He's not even a Stark. He is Jon Snow, and he chooses to follow Ned's example. Jon could stab Rhaegal with his sword, so the dragon's fire goes into the blade, creating Lightbringer. Then he can stab the frozen tree, burning the Great Other, and destroying the White Walkers. He'll save the world, not by sacrificing others and seizing power, like Azor Ahai and like Tywin and Ramsay and all the other monstrous men in this story. Instead, Jon could make a human, moral choice to save others. Jon will end the long night, but there'll still be one more small, sad war. A Song of Ice and Fire is partly George Martin's response to The Lord of the Rings, the classic fantasy story. Jon Snow is like Aragorn. They're both warriors and leaders who fight to save the world. They both have tragic romances. Both are secret heirs to the kingdom. But George questions Aragorn's happy ending, where he marries the girl and rules well for 100 years. Jon's ending will be darker than that. George loves the bit at the end of The Lord of the Rings called The Scouring of the Shire. After the Dark Lord is defeated, the hobbits go home, and they find there's still evil in the world. Saruman took over the Shire, and there's this sad, ugly conflict to remove him. Frodo can't live happily ever after, because he's wounded and traumatized, so instead he sails west, and magic fades from the world of men. It's about the cost of victory, the impact of violence, and the inevitability of change. The heroes save the world, but at great cost. The ending is happy, but also sad. It's bittersweet. And George says the end of A Song of Ice and Fire will be similar. So Jon might also face a sad final conflict. Maybe he'll come to King's Landing so Daenerys can rule, but they'll find Cersei on the throne, vindictively clinging to power, holding the city's civilians hostage. Like in the TV show, Daenerys will probably burn King's Landing, killing thousands of innocent people. In the TV show, she does this deliberately, out of anger and madness. But in the books, it might be accidental because of the wildfire. Cersei, Tyrion, or Jon Con might also be involved. Maybe Daenerys will lose control of her dragon, and Drogon will burn the city against her will. Daenerys struggles to control Drogon in the books. In House of the Dragon, Viserys says dragons cannot be controlled. They are inherently destructive. Like the icy White Walkers, Dragonfire is an apocalyptic threat to this world. So, like in the TV show, Daenerys will win the throne, but will be hated by the people and the lords. Visions hint that young Griff will be popular, so after Daenerys burns him and burns King's Landing, no one will want Dany to be their queen, and they'll want her dragon dead, like in the storming of the Dragon Pit. So to bring peace to the realm, Jon might have to bring down Daenerys and kill her dragon. Daenerys sees her dragons as her children. They are her power and her identity as a Targaryen dragon queen. After everything she's lost, if her last dragon dies, she'll have nothing. If Jon kills Drogon, she'd see that as the ultimate betrayal. That could be the prophesied third treason. But Jon may see that the realm can't have peace while a dangerous dragon lives, and while Daenerys has the throne. So this will be another painful moral dilemma for Jon. Will he betray his love to protect the realm? Make another tragic sacrifice to save the world from fire, just as he saved it from ice? He will want Daenerys' love. He will want to rule with her, but he'll know that peace is more important than his desires. It will destroy Jon if he has to kill Daenerys. Maybe he could fake her death so that she can escape to the east, tragically separating the lovers. There's lots of possibilities. Maybe we'll make a real Daenerys video to explore her fate. But it makes sense that Jon will bring down Daenerys, and that her dragons will die. Because in the books, dragons make magic stronger in the world. If the last dragon dies, magic could fade away, like the end of The Lord of the Rings. It's the end of fantasy. and the beginning of a world more like our own. Another possibility is that instead of killing Daenerys, Jon might have to kill King Bran, because Bran might be a sinister puppet of Bloodraven and the Old Gods. Having a creepy, inhuman tree wizard as king might be a bad thing. And George Martin's original outline of the series said that Jon and Bran would become enemies. The Old Gods seem like a sinister force, manipulating humanity, so maybe, like the dragons and White Walkers, the Old Gods need to be destroyed. Jon might have to reluctantly kill his beloved brother Bran. Whether he kills King Bran or kills Daenerys, Jon will know that he'll be exiled for this murder. So this killing will be another self-sacrifice. Despite all his heroism, he won't get to go home to Winterfell or be a king. He won't get love and glory. He might be widely hated as a traitor and murderer. Jon will give up everything to save a world that rejects him. In Book 1, Benjen said Jon didn't know what he was giving up by joining the Watch, but now Jon has experienced love with Ygritte and Daenerys. He's experienced power at the Wall and on Dragonback, tasted glory in battle. He's no longer a boy, he's a man. He's lived, and now he understands what he's giving up. That's what makes his sacrifice meaningful. So like in the TV show, Jon may be exiled beyond the Wall. He'll be separated from the Starks. But he might get to join the Wildlings. Tormund says that he'll make Jon a true Wildling, and Ygritte was right. Jon likes the free folk life. He had always felt like an outcast, like the Wildlings. Maybe Jon will finally get to be with Val, if she's still alive. With the free folk, Jon would be free of war, of politics, of vows. But, like Frodo, he'll be wounded. After his death and resurrection and his sacrifices, Jon won't be whole. Maybe he'll be a husk, like Cold Hands and Beric, unable to feel or enjoy life. Maybe zombie Jon will wander to that cave where Ygritte wanted to stay, and there he'll remain, with his memories of warmth, with his loves and losses, forever. George Martin loves fantasy, heroes, romance, and magic, but he sees that the real world is more complex than that. So his characters grow up, they are disillusioned, they learn that the world is not a fairy tale. Good and evil are not black and white, and we can't rely on prophesied noble princes to save the world. So in a complex, real world, what does it mean to be a hero? Jon Snow is a deconstruction of the classic fantasy hero, because he is a secret prince, heir to the kingdom, prophesied to save the world, but he rejects destiny, rejects his birthright, rejects the fantasy tropes. His heroism is realer and more human, because Jon struggles to do the right thing. He makes morally grey choices. He has doubts, temptation, conflicted desires, but he persists and chooses to save others. That's what makes him heroic. It's not because of prophecy or magic, but because people's lives matter. In a complex, cynical, real world, that's the heroism we need. At the end of the series, there'll still be evil in this world, darkness and weakness in every heart, but Jon embodies the eternal human struggle for light in a dark world. A dream of spring. Thanks for watching. We're making more videos about A Song of Ice and Fire and House of the Dragon and Dune, so press like and subscribe. We've already made videos about Bloodraven, Rhaegar, Ancient Stark Mysteries, the Grand Northern Conspiracy, and more, so check out those videos. Thank you to Bella Bergholtz, Urtach Altanuz, and Sandrixian for making illustrations for this video. Shout out to the Song of Ice and Fire experts linked below, whose excellent analysis helped inform this video. And thank you to the patrons. Support Alt-Shift-X on Patreon to get extra updates and monthly live streams. Thanks to patrons Stanislav Kolontaev, Jack J. Moore, Andrew, Aaron Shackle, Rosemary Walsh, Ben Warner, and Aurora. Cheers.